I put fear below purpose. So I'll be really scared. I'll be really scared. In everything that I've done, I've done it scared. But the purpose was more important than how I felt.
Life Reimagined with Stacey Ray.
Before we get into the roller coaster of Sarah's life, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and follow us so you never miss an episode of Life Reimagined. So I'm very excited to talk to you, Sarah, because a conversation between women who are formidable over 40,
Yes.
right up my alley. That's right. So I have the pleasure of talking to Sarah, and pronounce your last name so I don't embarrass myself.
Okay, it is Pittendrigh.
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 I'm so happy that you decided to have this conversation with me. I am always interested, seriously, to talk to women who get it, that your life does not stop because of challenges or obstacles. You've got to reach down deep and find something that will sustain you. And you've had quite a life, seriously.
Yes, yes. Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. And yes, you would say it's certainly been a roller coaster ride, for want of a better way of describing it.
When do you think the roller coaster really started?
I think it probably started when I was quite young, I think, in the formative years of childhood. Do you know when you sometimes just don't quite fit in? When you're younger, it's you want to fit in, but when you're older, you're quite glad you don't fit in because you want to stand out.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
you know, and I think, you know, I was always a bit of a tomboy, and I liked to be with my horses and outside and and I got bullied at school, and I think things like that can start planting little seeds of self-doubt when you don't feel that
Yes.
you've quite got a place. And I think I probably went through life from those formative years feeling a lack of self-confidence. And then I think that lack of self-confidence can lead to a lack of self-worth. And that can become a bit of a roller coaster ride.
You know, it's so interesting to me since I've been doing my podcast and since I've had my business. The universal theme is exactly what you're talking about. And I think we all feel so alone about it. And in fact, everyone is going through it, feeling that lack of self-confidence or self-worth or low self-esteem for various reasons. And I think if we could just talk out loud about it to each other,
Yes,
we would feel better. But I think sometimes talking about it makes us feel even weaker and more vulnerable.
yes, I would agree with that. And I think the other thing is, for me, I think I made it harder for myself because I would say my shield was a smile. So it was as if you can't hurt me type of thing. So I would be louder, I would be smilier, and therefore I think that maybe made it harder because what I was probably trying to overcome, I was potentially making worse because my strategy probably wasn't very good.
Right,
Does that make sense? You know?
Yes, it does completely.
So outwardly smiley, outwardly strong, but inside quite turbulent and anxious and lacking in confidence, which I probably look the absolute opposite of to the outside world.
And then at a certain point, did you start your own business or you were working for someone else and you had married and had a son and that brought you on another roller coaster, yes?
So yes, I think the biggest roller coaster ride would have been in 2008 when I was actually divorced from my husband. I had a 9-year-old son. I was on a board of directors, and we had a business that unfortunately was forced to close in 2008. There were so many things. We were in the midst of a massive recession in this country, lots of different factors. And because we as directors had really believed in our business and we couldn't have dreamt of it failing, we'd put personal guarantees into the business to see it
Oh boy.
grow and to invest in it. And I'd even put my house on the line as a security for the growth of the business. So when we lost the business, I lost everything. My home,
Your home.
my job, my car, my income. I had to declare myself bankrupt. I had gone from being what I thought was a very independent single mum with a lovely home to nothing, to absolutely nothing. And that would be the defining moment of where you're in the dust, you've licked your wounds,
Yeah.
and there was a guy came round to value the house, and it's this house. So there's a story of how I got it back. And
Oh,
yeah,
oh, I can't wait for us to talk about that. Yeah.
this gentleman came to value the house for the house to go off to auction. And that conversation I had with him was the point where, as a mum, everything took over. There was a power literally just came over me that I couldn't let my son down. I couldn't see him have his home taken away. And the wound licking needed to stop. The lacking of self-worth had to be just dismissed. I had to pick myself up. I had to change my mindset, and I had to just make it happen. I had to save this house.
It is amazing what we can drum up from the bottom of the barrel on behalf of our children,
Isn't it?
right? We won't always fight for ourselves alone, but when it comes to our kids,
Yeah,
totally different story.
totally. I think if I hadn't been a mum, I wouldn't have fought. I think I would have walked. I think I would have just said, "Take that. You've got everything. Just take the lot." But being a mum completely saved me. Saved me.
Yeah.
Mm.
So your conversation with the man who came to the house, and
Mm.
you said that was your defining moment.
Yes.
What was it that he said that actually triggered that reaction in you?
He gave me hope. If I could set up a business or do something, generate some income, I could potentially get my home back. Because of the state of the UK housing market at that time,
Right.
so many houses were being repossessed, so many businesses were closing. He believed that my house was in negative equity because of the state of the property market. So my brain suddenly thought, well, if my house is in negative equity and it's going to go to auction, if the bank can't get any money out of my house, what is the point of them taking it? Would it be better if I could pay the arrears on
Yes.
my mortgage? Would they then allow me to buy my home back and then start paying my mortgage again? Because it's surely better to have me continuing to pay my mortgage, pay back the arrears, than them get nothing and other than a cost of selling it. So then that sort of stimulated a drive, a fire, an ember of hope to do something that could, the end goal be earn enough money to facilitate getting our home back before we were evicted. And the thing was, again, bizarrely, because of the state of the British economy and the housing market, they weren't in a hurry to evict me because there was so much turbulence that I was kind of left on the dust.
What's the
Yeah.
normal procedure in the UK? How fast does that normally
Do you know the honest truth?
go?
I really don't know. I just knew I didn't want it to happen. And, I was getting the
Ah,
letters explaining, and then the guy had come round to value it, but I'd never been told we are going to take this house off
right.
you on certain dates. I just knew I never wanted to get to that
Ah,
point. So I just didn't even,
right.
I just at that point thought, I need
This
to,
is not going to
this
happen.
can't
Yeah.
happen. It can't happen. Yeah.
So you went to the bank?
Well, what happened was I didn't go to the bank or anything at this point. What I actually did, it's quite bizarre. But I was starting to feel agoraphobic and panic attacks and just really not in a good place. And I knew if this was to happen, I had to be mentally strong. So I needed to get
Yes.
outside. I needed to be in nature. I needed to refuel, re-energize. So I rescued a little black lurcher puppy and I named him Sam. And he would encourage me to walk and be outside and not let that agoraphobia
Oh,
take over. So
right.
walking with the dog, walking with my mum, brainstorming it all out. What could we do? I'd identified a gap in the market when I was working in the event sector for beautiful table linen and chair decor for weddings and events.
Oh, my.
So if I want to try and keep sane, take yourself to the dining room table and just pretend that you can build a virtual business. Nothing's in the way. What would this business look like? So I sat down and I wrote out a business plan of what I believed, and I did all the research and of what I believed it
Right.
could look like and what I believed it could do in order to make the money I needed to save the house. And that's what I did. And that it just in itself opened up possibility. My energy shifted. I started to feel more positive. I mean, I had no money. I don't know why I even thought this could happen, but I believed that it
Right.
could. And then I started going through my diary, looking for contacts. Who could I speak to? Who could help me? Is there any grants? Or I went to all of the banks and I said to them, look, I walked the banks in the local town. I've got this idea that no, we can't help you. You're bankrupt. We can't give you a bank account. It's just something we can't do. So anyway, I found a contact in my diary of someone who I had worked with in the past. And I got in touch with them and they invited me down for a meeting, and they were working for a government agency who supplied grants for small businesses and startups. And they invited me along to present this idea. So off I went, and lo and behold, long story short, this gentleman loved the idea and he believed in it and he could see it. And he had to speak to the relevant people. And a few weeks later, he came back and he said, yep, we can give you a small grant to help you get started. And there's one condition: you've got to have a bank account because you've got to demonstrate you can put this money into. And I'm thinking, I can't get a bank account. How am I going to do this? So back to the drawing board, typed in to Google, how do you get a bank account when you're bankrupt? It came up. There was a bank, the Co-op Bank would offer a cash account. So you don't get overdrafts or anything, but you would have a place to lodge money and you would get a debit card so you could buy things online as long as you obviously had the money. And the rest is history and awards on that wall. And I'm here in the house.
So all those awards behind you, you've
Yes.
won for your business
Yes.
and your business acumen.
Yeah.
Bravo, bravo to you.
It was just, there was a lot of good people supported me, and for that grant, I'm eternally grateful.
I know as an entrepreneur myself, having those resources and having people believe in you is huge. But if you don't have that grit
Yeah.
internally, it's not necessarily going to work. So your business took off, shall
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
say? And do you still have the business
Yes,
now?
I've franchised it and I have had it for 16 years. And one of my
You
franchisees, yeah,
franchised it.
and she just retired last month and she'd been with me for 14 years. One of my franchisees, yeah. So I've franchised it right across the UK from Scotland right down to South Wales. I've got 9 offices.
So you went from being a tiger to save your son and your home, and now you've got all these franchises, all these offices. And so now I really understand how formidable over 40 is so you.
But there's a big twist,
I want to hear the
a
twist.
plot twist.
Yes.
So
The plot
the plot
thickens.
thickens. So as the
Okay.
business was growing, Simply Bows and Chair Covers, it was growing. It was winning all those awards. I was winning awards.
Yes.
And we were putting franchises on. And the plan was that I would take the brand internationally and sell master franchises across the world if I could. That would be the idea.
Oh, okay.
Originally, that was never the plan. Originally, the plan was just to have a lovely small business that would keep my home. I'd be here for my son coming
Right.
home from school. You know, that was the idea. But the business just took legs of its own and it just grew, you know, through the awards and through the people wanting to be part of it. But as it
Right.
was growing, my ex-husband and I, who'd stayed really good friends, and he'd been very supportive in me starting this business, helping, you know, along with my mum. He lost his father to cancer, and my husband and his mum and dad farmed together. And this was really hard for him to be dealing with and trying to care for him and run the farm. And then 18 months later, he lost his mum to cancer.
Oh my.
And the whole
So
thing
now he's
was,
alone.
and he was on his own and he felt horrendous. And the whole thing was just really, really hard for him. But through all of the turbulence, we'd made a good team and we ended up getting back together again as a family unit. We get to the bit where we got remarried. We're not quite there yet.
Well, that did just thicken the plot.
Honestly,
Okay.
I don't think you've got long enough on this podcast, but
Yeah.
we will get there. So at this point, he has a farm. And because he'd been caring for his mum and his dad and somebody else had been supposed to be looking after it, and you can't imagine the chaos. But anyway, he was at a point where, you know, it just wasn't working. Nothing was
Right.
really working. And
Right.
he wanted to sell his farm and just really get away from it all. The noise was just too much. And I'd said to him, I said, well, okay, get it valued and so forth. So he did. And it just seemed a nonsense what these people came back with for the years that his family had worked on this farm. And I said, I think you could do better than this. I think you could breathe life back into the farm if you developed it into beautiful houses. The buildings were glorious, old stone and slate buildings, and breathe life back in, but retain the footprint so you'll always know that the farmsteading was there, but create houses out of them. Well, he'd always been told they would never get planning permission. At that point, I said, if we get planning permission, I'll park Simply Bows and Chair Covers and I'll just stay with the franchisees I've got who are very happy to, they're not crazily ambitious. They just want to do beautiful weddings and that suits me fine.
Right.
And
Right.
I'll work with you on the farm to develop these buildings. Anyway, we got planning permission. It was very hard to get, but we got it to start with 5 houses. So my husband, my father and I, we worked on that farm. We stripped all the buildings back, ready for builders to come in. So we worked on it for a year, physically, manually working on it. We built 5 houses. And in 2014, as we were sort of developing the first site, I got diagnosed with cancer. So I had malignant melanoma.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And anyway, look, and I was still doing weddings because I still had weddings to deliver from my own area until they kind of ran out. I never said I'd closed my office. I just said I let it quietly run out and then let the girls do the rest of it. And so that we had that, but we got through that and we kept going and we built those 5 houses and sold them, which was great. Very stressful because, you know, you can imagine and then we got planning permission again to develop another building, to build a further 3. And just as we got that, I got diagnosed with cancer again and I got malignant melanoma again, but on both occasions, thank goodness, successfully treated. And then we built the last 3 houses. It was kind of a 4-year project. So you can imagine, so Simply Bows and Chair Covers was just about to explode and be a big business. I decided to close that, not close it, but, just not go with the ambitious plans I had.
Not.
And
Yeah.
instead, it served its purpose. It saved my home, and it's given 9 lovely ladies a small business each that they may never have had before. And I decided, people say to me, why didn't you sell it? You could have got a lot of money for it. Why? Because sometimes it's not always about that. So I kept that, and it's very much has my heart. And we went on and did the houses instead.
So at the beginning of our conversation, you said, the roller coaster, life's been a roller coaster. I think that might have been an understatement.
Well, Ronan Keating maybe says it better than me. Life's a roller coaster.
So you were diagnosed with malignant melanoma twice.
Yes.
Did you go through chemo and radiation, or did you just have surgery, or?
No, they operated. Yeah. So what they did was you have your first biopsy, maybe, for want of a better word.
Yes.
And then when that came back
Yeah.
positive, they then went back in again and did another operation to go around the whole area again, but with a wide margin to make sure all the cells have gone. And then you go into a system for the first sort of 3 months where you go and get all your lymph glands checked to make sure it hasn't gone into your body. And now I go every 6 months. And I've had about 14 moles removed since for precaution. And I think it's so important. If you're not sure, anybody listening, if you're just not sure, get it checked out for the sake of,
Right. And that's actually a particular concern in my family. My grandmother actually got malignant melanoma in her eye.
Oh, gosh, right.
And they removed her eye.
Oh,
And at a certain point, it metastasized to her liver, and that's, what she actually passed away from. But, so that's always a concern. But I agree with
yeah.
you. People should be going to the dermatologist and getting their skin checked
Yeah.
at least every year,
Yeah.
or if they're suspicious.
Just like going to the dentist. You go to the dentist for your checkups, moles, or, so important.
We'll dive deeper into that right after this quick break.
Life is meant for exploring, and Sisterhood Travels is your invitation to rediscover you. Specializing in group travel for women 45 and over, we offer exciting trips to stunning destinations around the globe. Imagine tasting exotic foods, marveling at breathtaking landscapes, and connecting with incredible women who share your zest for life. Step into adventure, friendship, and joy at sisterhoodtravels.com. This is your time, your journey.
Picking right up where we left off, how did you keep up your formidable spirit of I will not be defeated while you're dealing with your cancer diagnoses and your business, and then working to expand the homes and build these homes? Where did that come from?
It's always about purpose. I put fear below purpose. So I'll be really scared in everything that I've done. I've done it scared, but the purpose was more important than how I felt. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I was really scared as a single mum when we lost our house, but the purpose of not losing it completely to get it back overshadowed the fear. It had to. So I had to just do it scared. Otherwise, I wouldn't have got what I wanted. The houses, we were really scared because that was my husband's inheritance, and we didn't know if it would work. What if no one bought them? We didn't build houses. We didn't know how to do this. We just got as much help as we could and brought in what we hoped were the right people for something that we believed would be a better outcome than what we were offered. So we did it scared, really scared. And the purpose was to make sure that my husband got what he deserved.
And that he could maintain his inheritance and the land.
Yeah.
So how do you start building houses when you don't have any experience doing that? And I mean, you said you and your father and your husband, were out there doing it yourselves.
Well, we didn't build the houses, but what we did was we prepared them. So we took the roofs off. We got rid of all of the, all of the things that weren't required as part of the build. And
Right.
we just got on, really. My dad had experience of renovating his own house from years ago, and we just sort of worked within guidance of sort of, we brought in a builder who was going to build it, and he could say, right, okay, you'll save X amount of money if you do this yourselves. So we would go and do
Right.
that, and to the point where we could do no more. And then the team came in and we would oversee it and try to manage it as much as we could. But they, as the professionals, came in. So planning people, an architect, a project manager who knew far more than we did, the builder and their team. And do you know what? I don't know what even made me think I could build and develop a farm into 8 houses. Other than at the time, my husband was in extreme pain. He was devastated. And all I wanted was
Right.
for him to feel better and to maybe, get out of it something better than was there for him at that time. So that became the purpose.
I have to tell you, I always say that I am such a princess. I hire people to do just about everything, especially since my husband passed away. But I'm thinking back, and my husband and I decided to gut my mother's house and update it and renovate it. My proudest moment was using a jackhammer myself to get all the old tile out, and I still can feel the feeling. And I remember the tile would just be flying everywhere, and my mom and my husband would be the ones who would bag it up and lug it out. But that was one of those things, like you say, that was cheaper than hiring someone, and I thought, why can't I do that? And so it was actually made me very proud that I did.
Yes.
And then from there, I moved on to removing wallpaper, I think, that had been on the walls for 30 years. That, I liked the jackhammer better. That was way more
I think
fun.
I would.
Yeah. So now you're in a position where you have shown your son what it means not only to be an amazing parent, but to advocate for yourself and not take no for an answer and not be defeated by, the obstacles that life throws at us. What's your relationship with him like now?
Amazing. I'm so proud of him. He is just
Yeah.
an incredible young man. He's 26 and he's a very passionate equestrian. He's done incredibly well. He
Oh,
works incredibly hard. He coaches other equestrians as well. And, he doesn't let anything get in his way. He just never ceases to amaze me with his
I
determination.
don't know where he would have gotten that from, though. And I have a feeling you amaze him too. And seriously, our children learn much more than what we say. They learn by what we do. So does he still live in and around or near you or with you, or is he independent?
No, he actually he's still at home, and his horses are at my mum and dad's because we live opposite to my mum and dad. So he's got them here, but he goes around teaching at different places, and so he's here for the now, but for how long we never know, do we? So
No,
yeah,
we never know. We
no,
don't. We don't.
yeah.
So, I have a saying with our podcast. We're trying to allow women to reimagine their lives and turn life's detours into new destinations. And clearly, you've done that over and over. At what point did you decide, I think others can benefit from what I've been to and become a motivational speaker and a coach? And
This is probably not going to be the answer you would be expecting, but it was disappointment. And it was disappointment at how I felt at the end of that property project. And COVID came and it stopped me running. So when I say disappointment, I would always feel better when. So I'll be happy when. When I've
When?
won awards, I'll feel happy. No. When I've built these houses and banked so much money, I'll be happy. I'll feel confident. I'll feel, whatever this measurement of success looked like. And you know what? When we'd finished this project, which was huge, and it would have challenged the best, I still didn't feel enough. And I was starting to think about what did I have to do next? And when COVID came and we were locked in our houses and I couldn't be busy, I was stuck in my own head. And it was like, why is enough not enough? And I'm going to keep burning out.
That's such a huge question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why is enough not enough? And if enough doesn't become enough, I'm never going to find happy. And I'm going to die saying, I wished I had, not I'm glad I did. So I had to understand
Wow.
why
That's,
was I
yeah.
not happy? Now, I didn't know what to do with me because I just was at a loss, but I did know how to start and build a business. So I thought to myself, if you were a business, what are the questions you would ask and how would you get it off the ground? What did you do?
Right.
And I applied exactly the same strategy to rebuilding myself, to try and find out what my end goal was, to be enough, to feel enough, so it wasn't about money. It was about inner peace and joy and
Enjoy.
and feeling at one with myself, not out to feel like I have to be or do what anybody else thinks or be impressed by or be in rooms that I don't want to be in. I want to just be able to say, no, enough's enough. No. So I did that. I used the methodology that I didn't know was a methodology at this point because I hadn't formalized it. And I just started asking questions and I did a SWOT analysis on myself. And then I started to think about what the goal would be. And then a jigsaw, right? And the picture on the front of the jigsaw is the ultimate goal in life. But there are so many pieces inside that have to be put together to formulate that picture. And I had to start putting these little pieces together if I wanted to complete the picture. And they were tiny steps. So you have the picture in mind, whether you use a mood board or you just have it in your head and you think, right, okay, so I now need to work backwards. So this is the picture. Then I would have done that and that and that and that till I get to the start. What's the first thing I've got to do to get on the road to that goal? I need to bring the goal to me. I don't want to push it uphill. I want it to come to me. And the first thing I had to do was re-identify who the heck I was. Who was I? Totally lost. Totally lost.
Do you think that you were lost about who you were because your identity had always been about pushing it up the hill and always on to the next project?
My identity had been about, which came out of all of this, proving my worth and not feeling that I was enough. And by living a life like that, trying to prove my worth or trying to be enough, it was never going to be a winning strategy because you couldn't win. You were always going to lose.
You can't.
Because enough
That's right.
was never going to be enough.
It's like that hole that you just can't fill.
Yeah. And you've got to totally understand why enough's not enough and just park it. Accept that was that. It's not who you are now. It's not where you are now. But look for the meaty lessons that you can use and reframe and turn pain into power and go forward.
And so from this journey that you went on to become enough,
Yeah.
you said that you had a strategy that you had not formalized at that
Yes.
point. And so have you now?
Yes. And it is the I can method.
My favorite 2 words, when my daughter was growing up, and probably still now, if I ever heard her say I can't, I'd say we do not use those words.
Yeah.
There's no such words in this house as I can't. I never wanted her to think she can't anything. It was always I can.
Yes.
I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I can.
Yeah.
So tell me about how your strategy works. Actually, I can.
Yeah. It is very much, funny enough, I was saying this to one of my clients this morning. When we are in the busyness of business and life, you can't see what's really going on, and you don't really see yourself, how you're acting out your life. So what this does, it takes you out of the picture to look onto the picture, if that makes sense. So if you can imagine you're at work or you're in the home and you're doing all the time. But if I take you out to look on as if you're looking through the window of you doing whatever it is you do every day, highlighting to you things you wouldn't normally see, ways that you maybe operate, things that you do, things you accept, things you say, things you allow people to say to you, the way that you maybe react to things or do things, it's just the whole picture, whether it's in business or in life,
Right.
but it starts with you. So many business coaches try to separate the founder from their business, and they say you've got to have a
Yeah.
work-life balance. I don't agree with that. I think that we are blended into one. So, if you're a mum, you're a mum. Do you know what I mean? If you're a business owner, you're the mum of your business. We're blended into
Right.
it. It's part of
Right.
who we are. So I start with the founder, and I want to reconnect them back with who they are before we even consider their business, because they're the foundation level. Whatever they do, whatever they think, how they feel, has a direct impact on the scale and the strength of their business, because they're the foundation. They're the most important person. So how they feel is the most important thing, because that's going to determine the energy they have, the motivation, the inspiration, the creativity, the strength, the courage, the ability to make informed decisions, not based on fear or what they think they should do or what they think's right for other people. It's about bringing them back to foundation level so they can then have clarity, focus, confidence to lead from a position of strength. Then, with that clarity and focus, they can start looking at their business in a very informed way,
So is informed the I and I can?
No, informed is ignite. To ignite that
Ignite.
spark. Because most of the people who come to me are exhausted. They've lost their spark. They've lost their why, their purpose, their values. It's all become a little bit muddled. And then C is to clarify. And that's the bit where we say, well, what are your strengths? What are any weaknesses that we need to turn into opportunities? What opportunities are there for you? What threats could stop you getting to where you want to be? That's what it is. How do we make those threats into an opportunity for you? And really reconnect them back with the SWOT analysis on them as an individual person, remembering they're not just a business owner, they're a person beyond all of that.
Do you know, Sarah, I have to tell you, as many SWOT analyses as I've done in my career, never once have I done one on myself.
Exactly. And yet you are
You just gave me a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because how can, and I don't get this, you see, because I know the impact of me ignoring me has had on my life. So when we put ourselves back and start saying, right, so hang on, I'm totally disconnected with who I am here. What are my strengths? What am I good at? And you do that SWOT analysis on yourself, and then you do one on your business as an overlay, and you find the gaps.
I have a question for you, because I'm just thinking, as women, especially, women in business and, any job, I presume, we don't always feel that we can speak openly and honestly about our strengths,
Mm.
right? Oh, we'll give you a list 18 pages long of our weaknesses, right?
Yes.
But our strengths, we're supposed to be a little timid
Yeah.
because if we're too over the top, like, oh, I'm great at this, I'm great at that, then you seem arrogant, although we would never say that about men.
Yeah.
But do you find when you work with people to do SWOT analyses on themselves that that's actually an issue, that they're really not able to be honest about their strengths?
It takes a while, but then when they do get to this point, they become quite emotional. And some of the strongest women I've mentored tell me, I don't cry. And yet with me, they cry because it's an emotional
Oh,
release. It's like
right,
gosh, I'd totally forgotten about that, or I'd never considered
right,
this. And yes, I am this, and I'm not just that. I am a someone. I'm not just a someone's. I am, yes.
right,
And it's like this light bulb moment of I can still be me. I can still be a
right,
someone and yet support the someones. And that
right,
is okay. That is
right.
okay. And that's so important.
It's such a odd concept for me. Like, now that I'm thinking about it, a SWOT analysis of me.
Yeah. And you'll
How
have,
did you come up with that?
because that was it. You see, I would do a SWOT analysis on a business. What would be the
Right,
strengths? For a feasibility study on a business plan? I would want to know
right,
what's the strength of this business, this feasibility
right.
study. What weaknesses
Sure.
could get in my way? What opportunities are there if I go down this road? What threats? What could stop
Right,
me executing that goal? So I thought, oh well,
right.
I need to do this on me because I don't know what I look like. I don't know what I am really. I'm confused. It's all a bit of a muddle, and that might give me a framework to work on. And that I don't know how or why, but it's just how my brain worked, and I'm delighted to say it's worked for me and many of the most amazing founders and women who've trusted me and who I work with. It's just an absolute joy.
So I guess the big question is, are you enough?
Definitely. Absolutely. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way. I just mean it
No, I
I
know.
just mean it in that I know that I am enough, in that I've done my best. And I know that at times that has not necessarily worked out well. But at the time, I've done my best. And I'm sure there'll always be times when I'll think, oh, I wish I hadn't done that, or I wish I'd done that. And because that's life,
Right.
it's normal. But
Yeah.
I'm enough in that I feel incredibly grateful to be where I am now. I feel peaceful, but still ambitious, if that makes sense.
Oh, yes. Yes, yes. I can tell you, I have, and I always attribute it to age. I don't know why, but I think, boy, at this point in my life, I do have inner peace.
Mm,
No matter what's going on around me, I do feel peaceful
mm,
and joy.
hmm.
I experience little moments of joy that I never used to.
Yeah.
And I feel like I can still be fun Stacy. I can still be founder and CEO Stacy. I can be mom Stacy, sister Stacy. Like, I have like all these different roles.
Yeah.
But I do feel sometimes, with all of that said, that I find the need to compartmentalize.
Yeah.
Like, instead of remembering that they all can work in a mutually collaborative fashion, so to speak.
Yes.
We have so many women that not only listen to the podcast, but also, like, in my own business, women over 45 or 50.
Mm,
And you've referred to fear often in this
mm,
conversation, which I really appreciate, because I think fear is the number one thing that holds people back from even being open to evaluating themselves
mm.
or trying something new. But as moms, it's different.
Yeah.
we'll go out there and beat a kid with a baseball bat if we have to, if they were picking on our kid, you know?
Yes.
And not that I'm promoting that. Please, let me say that. But I'm just saying there is nothing we would not do for our children. But we never feel that we're worth that advocacy, right?
Yeah.
And so your journey was maybe at the time, I'm guessing, was at the time earth-shattering, devastating. And yet look at the world it opened up for you,
Phenomenal. Honestly, it's
right?
yeah, it's been a incredible journey, and I don't really know what to say. It kind of leaves me a bit speechless, really, because I am in the most wonderful place where I feel an abundance of gratitude and joy.
I don't think until a couple of years ago I really understand what joy really felt like.
Mm,
Because you say, "Oh yeah, I'm happy," and you're going through life. Joy is this feeling that literally almost feels like you're being levitated for a minute, like out of your body. Like it's the most surreal feeling and it fills you up, even if it's just for a tiny moment,
yeah.
but it's visceral. You feel it.
Mm.
And I am so happy that I'm at that point in my life where I am able to feel that. What would you say to the women that are listening to this podcast that are not there yet? They
Yeah.
don't feel like they could say, I'm enough. It's enough. The hole is filled now.
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
your advice for them?
I think, and I don't know whether cancer shaped me, by saying, that moment of worrying, will I be okay? Will I not be okay? Or whatever.
Right.
But I think there's a couple of things where I say you may be scared to do whatever it is that you really want to do. Because I think even though we say we don't really know what we want, I think it's because we're too scared to say it out loud. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like sometimes I think most people really do know what they want, but the fear of admitting it is scary. And I think there can't be very much less scary than dying, like you say, lying on your deathbed in regret. And I don't think there could
Yes.
be anything less scary than lying on your deathbed saying, I wished I had, rather than I'm glad I did.
I love that.
And I think if you feel that, sort of picture that as a jigsaw, maybe, of lying there
Right.
saying, I wish I
It's a great
had,
analogy.
and
Yeah.
there's the picture of,
Yeah.
I wish I had. But what would all of those little pieces
Yeah.
be inside if you were glad you did? And what would that picture have looked like on the front instead? Maybe that analogy might help people to think of it in a different way.
Yeah. I absolutely love that because I'll tell you, I had never even considered that analogy, but it's so true. And all the pieces will fit within the picture you want,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And, I hear many women, and I'll just say this in closing that I do hear many women and men, I've heard people all my life, and they're bitter and they are defeated. And I or someone else will say, don't you want more or don't you want to achieve that? And the answer is very similar. It's basically, if I don't expect anything, I won't be disappointed.
Yeah.
You know, they feel that way about other people. I won't expect anything, and this way I can't get hurt.
Yes.
I've never been able to live like that. I don't ever want to live like that, and it hurts me to see other people living like that. I heard something George Clooney said the other day. He said, you don't learn from success. You learn nothing from success.
Yeah.
You learn from failing.
Yes. Very true.
To me, that is the absolute truth of life.
Yeah.
Because success is exactly that. Everything is going great. You're doing wonderfully.
Yeah.
But every single obstacle that you have faced head on and said, no, we're going to keep this moving, even if I have to keep climbing up that hill. And look at you, Sarah. Thank you so much for sharing such an amazing story with us.
Oh,
I have loved talking to you.
oh, thank
Absolutely
you.
loved
I've
it.
really enjoyed talking to you, and thank you so very much for kindly inviting me onto your show. Thank you.
Oh my God, it's an honor. And I really think that women and hopefully men too will think about doing that SWOT analysis.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know what a SWOT analysis is, it's the letter S for strengths, W for weaknesses, O for opportunities, and T for threats. And you can Google what a SWOT
Yeah.
analysis is. But what we've been talking about here on this show is taking that concept that you would use in business and applying it to yourself. And like I said earlier, you've challenged me. I guess I know what I'll be doing the next few days.
Well,
So
that's wonderful.
thank you so, so much,
Oh, thank
Sarah.
you.
If you like this show, please be sure to like us, follow us, subscribe to us, give us a review, because it really helps grow our podcast.